You surely saw the Democratic sit-in on the House floor, the House of Representatives. It was really unprecedented, at least in the last decade or so. And it all centered around, I think, this statement: no terrorist should be able to board a plane or buy a gun. No terrorist should be able to board a plane or buy a gun. Now, you'd think that that is so strikingly obvious and common sense that there wouldn't be controversy associated with it, yet it led to the sit-in. I wrote this in purple for a reason. Typically, red indicates Republicans and blue indicates Democrats, and when you blend those two colors together, you get purple. I truly see this as common ground. That, what American wouldn't want us to prohibit a terrorist from boarding a plane or buying a gun? The key is, how do we address that in legislation? This is a goal and an objective that I share as a Republican. I know my Democratic friends do as well. The challenge that we found up here is this. There's a number of ways of going about addressing that, and there are rights that need to be protected. First, the right to basic liberty, right to life. We don't want a terrorist getting on a plane or buying a gun. At the same time, our Second Amendment rights are very important to us. I'm a life member of the NRA, and by full disclosure, I have an AR-15 at home and a number of other firearms that I have, and I'm going to keep them. But as we look at this, and as a father and as a grandfather, I want to do everything I can to help not only my family, but every American family be safe. There are three proposals that are out right now, and the Lowy-Feinstein, the Cornyn, and the Collins. Now, they all try to address certain groups of people, and let's look at these definitions very quickly, because I found on the House floor that there's great confusion over what each bill addresses. There are approximately 800,000 individuals, of whom about 5 to 15,000 are Americans that are on what's referred to as the Terror Watch List. Terror Watch List, between 5 and 15,000 Americans. A second, much shorter list is the no-fly list, those that are blocked from getting on a plane. That only affects about 1,000 Americans. Keep that in mind. It's a very small number, about 1,000 Americans. And then the Selectee List, those that are really going to be singled out at the airport to go through a rigorous inspection to make sure that they're not carrying a weapon. That's a separate group of Americans, about 1,700. So if you combine these two groups right here, the no-fly list and the Selectee List, that's less than 3,000 Americans. Now let's look at the three legislative proposals that are out there to really try to advance that common sense statement that a terrorist shouldn't be able to get on a plane or be able to buy a gun. The one that kind of led this was Senator Feinstein. It's also been introduced in the House, and I voted against it in the House in a subcommittee, or actually a full committee hearing in appropriations. What it would do is it would address these 800,000 people, and of course what I'm really concerned about are the Americans. It would address the between 5,000 and 15,000 Americans who are on that list, and if the Attorney General, through the intelligence community and law enforcement agencies, believe there's a reasonable suspicion that that person poses a threat. That's important, reasonable suspicion. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. It goes on the list, and that person would be blocked from buying a gun, and the due process side of it, that is how do you get off the list, is quite cumbersome, and really, ultimately, the citizen is relying upon the ability to file a lawsuit and pursue that. It's expensive. It's just, I voted against it. To me, it is an infringement upon our Second Amendment rights, and there's a better way to go about it. There are two bills that I do support. The first one is introduced by Senator Cornyn of Texas, and it also addresses that same group. Let's just focus on the Americans, the 5,000 to 15,000 Americans who are on the terror watch list. And the individual who goes in to buy a gun, who's on that list, is unable to do so. They are blocked, but they're simply delayed. They're delayed for 3 business days, during which time the intelligence community has the opportunity to vet the person to make sure they're properly on there. But there's a higher standard there for blocking, and that is probable cause. It's higher than reasonable suspicion. So that's a key difference between the Republican view on that bill and the Democratic view, and you can decide for yourself where you stand on that. Now let's talk about a second legislative proposal that I support, and I support it so much that I actually am introducing it today with my colleagues in the House. It was first authored by Senator Collins of Maine. It has the support of Democrats in the Senate, Republicans in the Senate, and also Democrats and Republicans in the House of Representatives. And I think it's a principled alternative here. It addresses a much smaller group, less than 3,000 Americans, the no-fly and the selectee list. They are blocked from purchasing a firearm. And if they want to get off that list, they're going to have to go through that heavy burden of going through the court system. But this is such a narrowly defined and refined list that, to me, our security makes it appropriate to block them. Because we're not talking about 800,000 people, we're talking about less than 3,000 Americans. Also, if an individual under our bill, if they're part of the 800,000 and they attempt to buy a gun, they will be able to do so, but the FBI is notified immediately. So to me, this strikes the right balance. If given the opportunity on the House floor or in committee, I will vote for the Cornyn alternative. I'll vote for the Collins, and I guess you could also say the original plan here in the House. So it's important to de-escalate, I think, the emotion, although the protection of each and every one of us, given the circumstances and the horrible attacks that we've experienced in our country, we need to do both. We need to advance our security and protect our liberty at the same time. Not easy to do, but we can do it. Thank you.